this up here. That makes more sense. Yeah, comments. All right. Hey, everybody. Looks like we are live on YouTube, the Facebook page, as well as over on TikTok. And I am back. I am resuming my conversations with a former USCIS Adjudications Officer. I am Carol Williams. It's nice to be here again. I missed you guys. For those of you that were joining me before, I'm an immigration attorney. I own a law firm, Williams Immigration. We work with business owners as well as families and helping them navigate our U.S. immigration system, which is quite complicated. So we are here to help you, my team and I don't shout out my team nearly enough. They are amazing. So I wanted, before we started really taking some questions, but if y'all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I will get to them. But today I want to talk about the H-1B lottery. It just ended. The last, and you couldn't enter the lottery after Monday, this past Monday at noon. And today the Immigration Service completed running the lottery. So those of you that applied for the H-1B lottery, USCIS put out a notification late afternoon today saying that they had completed the initial run of the lottery. So if you entered the lottery and you submitted your registration yourself, go into your My USCIS account and check that. And if it now says selected, then you are able to file your H-1B application, which is great news. For those of you that are still seeing submitted, that means you at this point were not selected. At least the past 2 years that I can recall offhand, though, there have been more than one running of the lottery, but that is never a guarantee. So if you put yourself into that H-1B lottery, you haven't been selected, now is really the time to start thinking about potentially executing your Plan B. So I wanted to kind of talk about what some of those Plan Bs look like. For some people, it's going to be going to school and getting another degree and staying in the U.S. as an international student. For others, it's going to be continuing to work on their OPT and entering the lottery next year because they have another year or two on their OPT. For some folks, it's going to be applying for another visa category because sometimes people qualify for more than one visa category. We just decide as a strategy that we're going to start with the H. So keep that in mind. For some folks, it's going to be working at a related company overseas related to the one that they're currently maybe with as a foreign student. For others, they will have an option to buy into or invest into a U.S. business. We've got visa categories surrounding that. And unfortunately, for some people, their best option and maybe their only option is going to be to return home, which that returning home piece never feels good when that is the news I have to deliver to folks. But sometimes that is honestly just going to be your best option. So I wanted to keep you all aware of that, let y'all know that that is going on. And another option is sometimes people don't think about it. They don't really give themselves enough credit, but they may qualify for a national interest waiver. So that's something that, we may want to think about as well. And so if you guys have questions, I am here to answer some questions. Before we get, I see some questions in the comments, but before we get to questions, I'm a lawyer, so obviously there will always be a disclaimer. I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer, though, however. All of my clients always begin with a consultation where I can get all the facts, ask them a ton of questions, figure out if it's a case I handle, figure out if it's something where I think we have a solution to help you. If that is the case, then you there's a process to becoming a client of the firm. These my Q&A sessions are for information only, for education only. We don't have an attorney-client relationship and all the things. Okay, so keep that in mind. So let me see. And as a reminder, we are live on the Facebook page, the YouTube page, as well as TikTok. So let me see what y'all want to talk about tonight. Someone is asking, is it true that the 601A is taking less time to be approved? I don't know. I love it that the first question is about processing times. I don't know, one, primarily because I don't actually really do a whole lot of work with 601A waivers. And two, because I don't know processing times like that off the top of my head. So when I pull processing times for my clients, I pull them right then and there before I either shoot them an email, put a note in their portal, or get on the phone and have a conversation with them. Processing times with the Immigration Service are always in flux. Always, always, always. What I will say, though, is while I don't know the exact processing times for 601A, the Immigration Service raised their filing fees. They are a fee-based agency, and that means that substantially large proportion of how they run their agency is based on those filing fees that we are sending in. And so they just raised the filing fees. They are effective today, April 1. My prediction with my imaginary crystal ball, my prediction is that the backlogs are going to continue. So while some things we saw, maybe them speeding up, the processing times were, becoming shorter, I suspect the processing times for most things are going to become much longer, because I know myself and my colleagues, it was a race to file applications before today, before the fees went up. So again, while I don't know the exact processing times for 601As, they may be taking less time right now. I don't know, but I do predict with my imaginary crystal ball that things will be back starting to slow down again. So just keep that in mind. That, again, just my own imaginary crystal ball predictions. What else do we have? What are some reasons for denial of VAWA with criminal non-CIMTS? I don't handle VAWA cases, so that's not even a question I can remotely guess for you. I am super okay with saying I don't know. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear lawyers say that we don't know, but the fact is we just don't know everything. And I don't handle VAWA cases, so unfortunately, Kay, I am unable to give you any sort of thoughts on that. Let me see here. I have a fiance from the Philippines, but I'm in medical school, so I don't make enough. Is there a way around that? I'm assuming we are asking about the affidavit of support. So if you, as the petitioner, don't meet the affidavit of support guidelines, you can always get someone else to be a joint sponsor for that affidavit of support. And so that person would then need to show that they have the income that meets the requirements in order to be a co-sponsor on that affidavit of support. So if you are in school, or you just, your income is not what the government says it needs to be, you don't meet that threshold, you can always get a joint sponsor. So what else do we have? Do you have any idea how long it takes to get an interview date for a spouse in JA after DQ? So I don't know where JA is. Jakarta, Jamaica, I have no idea. So after they've been DQ'd, which is documentarily qualified. So again, I don't know processing times off the top of my head. Even harder with processing times is the Department of State doesn't really tell us, right? Department of State oversees all the consulates. So they don't really tell us. So I can only kind of go off what my colleagues and I are seeing. And so that's really kind of how I advise my clients. And that is why I have really good friends, and I'm super happy that I have really good friends that are other immigration attorneys, because we talk a lot about processing times and strategy and things like that, so that we don't operate within a silo just ourselves. So that is one of the things. Honestly, if it was a country that I haven't particularly worked in maybe in a while, I would reach out to a couple friends and ask them. But I don't know. You how quickly you get an interview really depends on the workload of that individual consulate. That's kind of the big takeaway. Um, can I seek asylum in Ireland after my I-130 is approved for me to go through consular processing in Ireland? Seeking asylum in Ireland deals with Irish law, which I'm not versed in at all. I was going to say I'm not well versed. I'm not even poorly versed. I'm not versed in it at all. I don't know anything about Irish law. So that you would need to speak with someone um, who knows and understands Ireland's immigration laws and requirements. How long does it take to get a notification after they receive the petition? So I'm assuming you're talking about a receipt notice. So once an application is filed with USCIS here in the States, they send out a receipt notice, which is just that. It just says that they have received the notice, that kind of thing. And, confirms your name, your basic information on there, what you applied for. Depending, like 2 to 4 weeks. It just really depends. Now, if this is on the employment side and you've opted for premium processing, then your attorney is going to get should get an email of that, should get an email for that application. So I know for my employment-based clients, when I file using premium processing, I get an email notification that the application has been received, and then I get a paper notice in the mail. There are some times when premium processing is super efficient and super amazing and super awesome. I get the email notification of the approval long before I get the receipt notice and the paper approval notice in the mail. So if you're filing an employment-based case, premium processing is sometimes super efficient and really great for that. But usually I tell people about 2 to 4 weeks. There are some pockets of cases I've been talking about with my clients or my colleagues recently where the receipt notices are taking forever. But in general, I tell people to kind of budget like 2 to 4 weeks. Let's see, what's my filing fee? So the government filing fees depend on what kind of application you are filing. Each application has a different filing fee. Let's see here. I'm asking if asylum will affect my I-130 process. I don't know. I don't do any asylum work. I've not touched asylum work, and I can't even begin to tell you how many years ago, back since I was in law school. So I don't handle any cases that have an overlap with asylum. So I don't know how asylum will affect your I-130 process, if at all. I have no idea. This is a very good question, but it's super broad. But I get this question often. What's required to bring someone from other countries? That's a great question, and I get it, quite frankly, all the time. But it's super, super broad. So I don't know if that person is talking about family-based applications. I don't know if they're talking about employment-based applications. I have no idea what you're referring to. So in general, if you are looking to bring someone to the United States and you are an employer, you want to employ that person, I always start with looking at the job description of what you want them to do in the United States and their resume. With those two things, I get before we do a consultation, and then that guides me with the consultation. And I can, run through before we even get on a call, what visa categories might be available of those that I think are available. That really guides my questioning during a consultation. If we're talking family-based application, it depends on what that familial relationship is. Are we talking about a parent? Are we talking about a dependent child? And a dependent child in the immigration world is an individual that is under 21 and unmarried. So if you are 20 and married, that person is no longer considered your dependent for immigration purposes in terms of sponsoring them. So great question. I get it all the time. And I understand that's the sort of the first question that a lot of people have. For those folks, I have to do a consultation because I have to kind of dig in and see what's happening. Are we thinking employment? Are we thinking family-based? So great question, but very, very broad. So I appreciate that question. Someone has asked where my firm is located. So my firm is virtual. I am physically located in the state of Florida, but I work with clients all over the country and all over the world. I don't specialize or target one specific country, one specific language group. I work with folks all over because I work with quite a few businesses that are multinational businesses. That keeps my client base very diverse in terms of where they sit in the world. So I work with folks that are all over. So that's some of the fun of being an immigration attorney, is that we can really work with clients that are nationwide as well as globally for their immigration matters. Let me know what other questions y'all have. Because if you are new to joining my lives in the evening, after my lives, I go have dinner. So usually when I say I'm gonna end and I'm gonna go get dinner, y'all have like 50,000 more questions, which is fine. But I don't see any more questions in the chat. So if that is the case, that's cool. And maybe I will go jump off and have dinner. Let me check my calendar though before I say that. I'm gonna switch up the time of my lives, guys. So sometimes they'll be at night. I'm gonna try to get myself on a schedule, and then I'll let you know what that schedule is. But I may start doing some of them in the mornings, just so that we're capturing different time zones. I've had a couple of you reach out and say that you wanted to chat, but evenings, my time, were not good. Or that you felt like you were kind of missing things. So I'm gonna kind of switch it up. So some of them will be in the mornings, some of them will be in the evenings. So if you have a preference, let me know that. The other thing I wanted to let y'all know is that I send out a newsletter to my clients and to other interested folks. So if you want to get on that newsletter, feel free to DM with your email address and just say that you want to get into the newsletter. So DM the word newsletter and your email address, and my team will make sure that you get on that list, because I do send out information each month. And if you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe, but that's fine too. Let me see here. What do we got? What about fraudulent marriage? What about fraudulent marriage? Fraudulent marriage is bad. Fraudulent marriage is bad. So you want to make sure that you are not engaging in a fraudulent marriage just for the purpose of getting a green card. Immigration will figure that out. They'll figure that out. They will deny the green card application. If they don't figure it out on the front end and they approve the application and you get the green card in the mail, when they figure it out, they will issue a notice of intent to revoke that status, to revoke the lawful permanent resident status. Nobody wants that. So I'm not quite sure what your question was about fraudulent marriages, but they are bad. Do not engage in them. Next question. I filed my I-130, got the receipt notice within 6 days, then filed the K3. Would I get a receipt? For everything that we file with immigration, we should get a receipt. That said, I haven't done a K3 in, I can't even remember when, quite honestly. But we get a receipt for everything that we file. Like, there's no other way that we know we filed it without a receipt. So I don't even know what the processing times might be for that in terms of you to get a receipt. Let's see here. How long does it take to get the residence card? So, a couple ways I can interpret your question. If it's approved and you've gotten an approval notice, usually about 6 weeks until the physical card arrives. If you are talking from the very beginning of the process, it depends on how you are processing that green card application. In general, I tell people it takes a couple of years. Green card applications are not quick. There is zero about the Immigration Service that is quick, unless it is an employment-based case and you're filing using premium processing. And then there is a quickness to it. There is, it's expedited, but you're paying for USCIS to expedite that application for you. So I'm not quite sure what you mean about how long does it take to get your green card. If it's the process itself, a couple of years in general. If it is the actual green card after you've been approved, about 6 to 8 weeks, It looks like you're saying it's been months. It's been 4 months and you're waiting on it. I mean, I wish I could say I was shocked, but nothing about the processing times at this point shocks me. So my first question would be, are you sure you were approved? Did you get an approval notice? Or did you go to a green card interview and they said, we recommend you for approval? Because those were two very different things. Being recommended for approval means that a supervisor still needs to review the application and sign off, and then it ultimately may or may not get approved. That's number one. So if that's your scenario, 4 months wouldn't necessarily surprise me at all because you're not actually approved. Now, if you've received the approval notice in the mail that says your lawful permanent resident status has been approved, then 4 months is unfortunately long. It's longer than I would appreciate for any of my clients. And so you may need to reach out to the Immigration Service and, figure out where that is. But first I would check the online system and see what it says, because sometimes it'll say it's been approved, then it should flip to, that they have sent it out and they provide a United States Postal Service tracking number. If that's, once you get that tracking number, you can then go track your package and find out where it is. So it may not be a USCIS issue at that point. It could be a Postal Service issue at that point, which honestly, to get the postal system and USCIS to talk to one another to figure out what's going on with a piece of mail, not an easy feat to do. So again, those are some options of what you may be going through in terms of your question, which is a little broad. So I figured I would cover a few things. It took someone I know 6 years. I'm assuming that means to get a green card. And yes, sometimes it can take that long. Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Like I said, processing times are long. And with my fake crystal ball, I think they're only going to get a little bit longer. Can I call you about the fraudulent marriage? Absolutely. You can go to the link and set up a consultation. You can go to the link in my bio, set up a consultation. More than happy to chat with you about fraudulent marriage issues. And again, I'm not assuming that you're in a fraudulent marriage. I'm just saying in general, because your question was a little broad, fraudulent marriages are bad. But yes, more than happy to have a consultation and talk about your specific situation. What do we got here? All right, let me see. Do we have anything over on YouTube or the Facebook group? Let me check over here. Y'all are always on fire on TikTok, but I like to give my YouTube folks an opportunity as well as my Facebook people. Okay, I don't see that they have any questions. What else? What else do we have over here on TikTok? I don't see any more questions, so we'll give it a minute more. If you guys have more questions, we'll see what I can do in terms of answering them. But if not, then I will sign off for the evening and see you again tomorrow. Let's see what we got here for questions. But yeah, if y'all want to schedule a consultation, you're more than welcome to do so There's a link in the bio, which you can absolutely do that. If you want to peruse other videos that I've done on mostly on employment related immigration, the YouTube channel is great for that. And these conversations, these lives are also over on the YouTube channel. So if you've missed something, you're welcome to head out over there and take a peek. Someone is asking, Fran is asking, how long does it take for VAWA cases? I have no idea. My practice does not involve VAWA. And that's actually, I'm glad that you asked me specifically that question, because my practice doesn't involve VAWA. All immigration attorneys don't handle the same types of cases. So when you are asking these questions or looking to hire an immigration attorney, you want to make sure that they handle the type of case that you have. That's another reason why a consultation is so important. There have certainly been times when people have scheduled a consultation with me, and in the notes they may say, "Oh, I want to talk about VAWA," or "I want to talk about a waiver," or "I was told I needed a waiver." And that gives me an opportunity to say to you, you know what, I don't handle VAWA cases. And so what happens at that point is I refund your consultation fee. And if I can, I will be more than happy to give you a couple of names of people who do handle VAWA cases, who may have space, where they can, add new clients. So that's a super important thing about consultations, right? It gives me an opportunity to figure out if it's something I can help you with. But on the very front end, if it's something that I know my firm doesn't do, I will go ahead and we'll cancel your consultation for you so that you're not wasting your time. We will refund your money so that it's not a situation where we cancel and keep the money. We don't do that. So the consultation is really, and that lead up to it where you're telling us what you need is really very helpful and sometimes very time saving for you all. Let's see what we got here. So Fran, I appreciate that question. Unfortunately, I can't help you with it, but I do appreciate it. How long does NVC take to schedule an interview after DQ? So Leo, that totally depends on the consulate that it's going to. So each consulate handles their own workload. They prioritize their own workload. And so the consulate is in communication with NVC. The consulate will say, okay, we can take 20 or 30 or 10 or 5 or 2 more cases of a certain type over the next 2 weeks, month, whatever that time frame is. And so, they don't tell me this. They don't tell outside counsel this, right? It's a closely guarded secret because it is based on the workload of each individual consulate. So I don't know how long it's going to take for your case from DQing to getting an interview. I wish I did. What I typically do, how I typically help my clients through that is colleagues and I, we talk to one another a lot. And we ask, hey, do you have a case in Paris? Do you have a case in Istanbul? I'm trying, when was your, how long for your last couple of cases did it take to get from DQ to interview? So that, that helps us. So immigration attorneys often talk a lot with one another so that we can share that information because the government doesn't share it with us. Can a felon petition a spouse? The answer is it depends. The Immigration Service will absolutely want to know if the U.S. citizen spouse has been convicted of a specified crime against a minor under the Adam Walsh Act. If that person has, then their ability to sponsor someone is extremely, extremely limited. And there is an Adam Walsh waiver that they must go through. If there is any other type of felon, we need to really look at it and see what it is. And, whether or not immigration is going to have a problem with that, whether or not there are any, Adam Walsh implications at all when the felony was. So it's not a no, it's not a hard no, but there are certain crimes, specifically Adam Walsh crimes, which are specified crimes against a minor, that the Immigration Service takes very seriously, and it is very difficult to get them to approve those cases because a waiver is required. So if there is a felony involved, I would say reach out for a consultation. So that's a much larger conversation. Coffee Bean says, my medical has been in for about 6 weeks. And when will immigration reach back out? Oh, that's the magical question, right? Like, we all want to know when immigration is going to reach back out to us. Magical question, and I don't know is the answer that I have for you. So immigration they have been inundated with things, right? So I have a few things like, did immigration specifically ask you for the medical? Or, did you get a notice saying that your application was, quote, deficient because it didn't have the medical, and then you sent the medical in, even though part of that message also says, you don't have to send it to us now. We're just kind of letting you know when we're ready, we'll ask for it. So there's a couple different ways there, right? If the Immigration Service has specifically asked you for it, then I always tell people that's good news, because they actually have your file. Like, they have your file. A human being has looked at it and they are working on it, right? But that said, it may not be the quickest, right? Like, I would love for my clients to get a response like in 2 days or in 2 seconds. It just doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't happen. So there is no specific time frame where Immigration Service says, hey, we will get back to you in, X amount of time because you have now submitted this information to us, right? But the fact that they've asked for it, it looks like you had an interview. Those are all good signs, right? That officer is going to want to get that application done. But keep in mind, in the time that it took you to get the medical, send it back into the officer, if that took you, let's say 3 days, that's 3 days worth of people, of other immigrants that they have had conversations with. So work still turns out in the local offices. So 6 weeks is not kind of a long time, in my opinion, which I know no one ever wants to hear that, but 6 weeks isn't really that long of a time. Work permit submitted September of 2023. How long will it take to get approved? I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I don't have processing time sort of in my head. I look at processing times on the USCIS website all the time. So when I'm looking them up to tell the client what the processing times are, or they've asked me and I look them up to tell them what they currently are, I always look them up. I don't really ever go from memory. So I don't know how long I don't know how long I think we're asking about EADs. I don't know how long the EAD is going to take, the work permit. It will depend on what kind of case you filed, which office in the US is processing that EAD application. Excuse me. The best way for you to find out is to go onto the USCIS website, plug in your receipt number, and see where they are, or you can go to the generic processing times and see what they are processing in general, and it's going to give you general information. So that's always kind of the hard part, right? Is that we want things back super fast, and sometimes we just can't get them back super fast. And it looks like I don't have any more questions. I don't have any questions. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. I don't see any more questions for this evening, so I'm going to sign off, but thank you all for joining. Thanks for the great questions. I love chatting with y'all. Y'all are super fun. I'm going to go make some dinner now. I'm not quite sure what. It might be leftover Easter dinner because that's already made. All I have to do is heat that up, which is a bonus. But I'll be back tomorrow evening to chat with you all again. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to come back tomorrow evening. I usually lead off with something that I think y'all need to know, and then we dive into your questions. Again, I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. It's a boutique immigration law firm. I used to be a USCIS Adjudications Officer over in headquarters up in Washington, D.C. Always fun chatting. I will chat with y'all later. If you want to talk more in depth about your specific case, you need some help strategizing, you are welcome to set up a consultation with my office. The link is in the bio. And we will chat again tomorrow night. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.